I just want when people tune in to watch to feel like we're sitting in a coffee shop and you and I are chatting and they get to eavesdrop on our conversation. Hey everybody, Erik Stein here. It's the last Thursday of the month, so you know what that means? It means it's time for PCPA's Talkback series. I got my interviewing shirt on and I got my raspberry lime spindrift. One of my favorite actors and favorite human beings in the world is who I get to talk with. And I can't wait for you to get to know her even better. I am so thrilled because she's also going to be my colleague. Because Jennie Greenberry is going to be joining PCPA's Resident Artist Company coming this August. And she's going to be with us for the whole 58th season. She's going to be teaching in the conservatory. I am so excited by how much I'm going to learn from her, getting to be on stage with her. And I can't even begin to tell you how lucky our students are that they're going to get to spend the next season with her. I want to tell you a little bit about my journey with Jennie before Jennie even knew who I was. Some of my favorite nights in the theater have been watching Jennie Greenberry on stage before she even knew I existed. I remember seeing her at Oregon Shakespeare Festival in a brilliant, brand new, I'm going to call it a musical because there was a lot of music in it, a brand new show called The Coconuts. I got to be there on opening night. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. I laughed. I made a spectacle of myself laughing so hard. I loved it so much. And after I had spent about 30 minutes with her, watching her in the show, I was like, that's who I want to be our next resident artist. Now, that was like 5 years ago. The next year, I got to see her in Pericles, and she came in to talk with me when I was there auditioning the actors. And I was so excited because I had been wanting her to maybe consider coming to work with PCPA, and I had talked to my boss, Mark Boer, about it, and Mark had seen her in work, and he was very excited. And so we started talking with her saying, hey, we'd really like you to come down here. But she was getting tons of offers. She was getting offered to come back and play Ophelia in Hamlet. She was getting offers to go play Roxanne in at the Guthrie Theater in Cyrano de Bergerac. So we just kept trying. We spent about 3 years, basically yearly, offering a job to Jennie Greenberry. And she was very much in demand. We got very fortunate because one of my other favorite nights in the theater, times in the theater, getting to spend time watching Jennie Greenberry is when she came and worked with us the summer of 2019 when she played Alice Beinecke in our production of The Addams Family. It was such an amazing performance, and so many of you got to see her do that. I could go on and on. Her performance as Cinderella in one of the most amazing productions of Into the Woods I've ever seen. Her work in Love's Labor's Lost in another just like rocked my world. Jennie, I could go on, and I'm going to make you talk about each of these shows, but I'm going to let you talk. How are you? Where are you?
Hi, I'm so good. I'm going to play back that intro later just so I can hear you say all those nice things about me. Thank you. I am coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. This is my hometown, though I was born in LA, but this is where I was raised. And I'm here with my parents.
Jennie, I want to go. I want to talk specifically about some of these shows because they had such an effect on me, and so I'm just going to make the big assumption that they had an effect on you. And I want to hear. I just want you to give me a couple of thoughts. The first things that come to your head when I mention some of these shows.
Great.
Talk to me about the experience of working on Coconuts, which is a play with a lot of music. That's going around the movie that was made famous by the Marx Brothers.
Yes. That was probably the most fun I think I've ever had on stage. And I started, acting professionally in 2008, right out of school. So I've had, thankfully, a lot of experience to compare the Coconuts to, and it was just so much fun. Yeah.
I was blown away. I was blown away. Opening night was one of the most special nights I've ever had in the theater, watching you all do that show.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I heard I'm friends with I was I'm really good friends with the young woman who understudied you, and she would tell me that
Yes.
yes, and she would tell me that that the show could vary by 20 minutes,
Yes.
show by show, because there was so much improvising in the show.
Yes. I think the longest we ever had was 30 minutes tacked onto the show. And that was when our stage manager, God bless her, would rein us. You know what? I say us. It wasn't us. It was Mark Bedard and Brent Hinckley and John Tufts, whom I love dearly. It was actually Mark Bedard's adaptation that he wrote that we performed. But it was those three causing the most mayhem. And yeah, stage management was like, we need to reel that back in, y'all, because OSF is a repertory theater and we have a changeover crew that needs to get in here and load in tonight's set. So y'all need to like stick to the time limit.
We got another show. We got another show that's coming that has to start at 8 o'clock.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's 7:30. So chop chop.
Yeah, I could go on and on. I mean, that opening night when just the how alive the audience was and how you all responded to the audience,
Yeah.
and honestly, watching those of you who didn't improvise,
Mm-hmm.
how you managed the actors who were improvising, the Marx Brothers,
Yeah.
was masterful to watch. You and KT Voigt and David Kelly. I just sat there. It was a masterclass of watching improvisers and then watching people who also were like, and
Yeah.
this was my job in the show. It
Yes.
was fascinating to
We
watch.
all knew who the straight people were, and no one was trying to step into the Marx Brothers limelight. We were happy to let them do what they were going to do. I will say, though, that I think Kate Vogt was probably the only person in our cast of, gosh, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 people that never broke the entire run.
Wow.
And this was like the season long run from February to like October.
That is great. Okay, I'm going to keep going.
Great.
Heracles is one of the most beautiful shows,
Mm.
and I had never seen that Shakespeare play before. I saw
Yeah.
you do it, and I absolutely loved it and couldn't figure out why more people aren't doing it all the time. But it was a magical production.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you? Had you done a lot of Shakespeare before that?
Haha, nope. That was this is my confession time. Prior to that production, which was in 2015, I had made it a point in my career to avoid any NL Shakespeare because it was terrifying. It felt horribly outdated. Uh, yeah, it was never something that was accessible to me until I got to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and until I got to work with Joe Hodge, who directed Pericles and is now the artistic director of the Guthrie, and Rebecca Clark Carey, who is on staff at OSF as one of the voice and text coaches. She was the voice and text coach for that show. And between those two, my mind was just blown wide open. And I finally was able to connect to Shakespeare in such a deep, meaningful way. And now I just can't stop doing classical work. So,
And you've gone on to play so many amazing classical roles.
yeah,
Not to mention Ophelia and Rosalind and so many
yeah.
more. All right, I want to hear. So this was a fascinating night for me in the theater because I love Into the Woods. It's been
Oh,
one of my favorite shows forever. Tell me that production of Into the Woods,
yeah.
directed by Amanda Dennert, who has
Oh,
become like I'm like obsessed with her, and she doesn't even
yes.
know I exist. That blew my mind because it was so out
Yeah.
of the box. I'd seen the show so many times. I owned the DVD of
Yep.
the original stage production, and
Yes.
she just went places and completely reimagined the show, and I loved every minute of it. Talk to
Yeah.
me about that experience.
Oh my gosh. Amanda Daynert, if you are watching this, know that I love you
Mm,
and always will.
I do too, and you don't even know me.
Amanda, Eric, Amanda. She is one of the most incredible artists I've ever worked with. I mean, she directed the show, she music directed the show, she conducted the show until she had to go back and teach um, in Illinois. And it was just, I've never worked with a director that could music direct and arrange pieces and write music, and she's just incredible. That has been on my wish list, Into the Woods, since I saw the DVD version in 7th grade. And that was the first time that I realized, oh my gosh, like musical theater is a thing. You can tell stories with music and people like that. So it was really, really wonderful to be able to do that.
Let's wrap it up with one more show of
Great.
yours that completely blew my mind. And it was a show that I actually got to meet with you after the show, and we that was when we first actually started going, okay, this might actually happen. We might actually be
Oh,
able, which was Love's Labor's Lost.
yes.
Um, and
Mm.
man, Jenny, I loved that show. It was like I just loved it so much.
Amanda
And
Daynard.
I mean, talk to me a little bit about that production because Amanda did so
Mm,
much on that one too.
yep. I love how her mind works and how she has such a seamless grasp of Shakespeare's language and can make it so accessible and yet stay true to the written word. And I love how she can marry that with this incredible musical soundscape. And she and another associate wrote all that music.
I know. It was
They
just
did all of that together.
there were
And it's
like two
just,
rock
ugh,
bands on stage. The boys
yeah,
were a rock band and the
yep,
ladies were a rock band, and they were like feuding rock bands. And then you had
yes,
Jack Wanetta coming through with her ukulele, who just kind of wanted to be
yes,
in one of the bands. And oh
yep.
my God, I loved it so much.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And it was just a really fun process to be a part of too, because these were all songs that Amanda had written. So obviously, we had all of the leeway to kind of tweak them. You know, we had several different iterations of one of the songs that us ladies had, and it went through a couple different versions. And she was just so open to, like, you know what, let's try this. No, let's try this arrangement. Okay, let's put you on this line and you on this line. And it's just, music is my first love. So to be with a director that loves music possibly more than I do, it's pretty fantastic.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I can't wait for you to make it possible for me to meet her someday because I
It's
am a
happening.
huge fan, and I will travel large distances to see her work.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about mentorship,
Mm,
um, because one of the things that you and I get to do at PCPA is we get to
mhm.
be mentors for young actors in training.
Yeah.
Now, can you talk to me about some of your early mentors? Who were some of your early mentors?
You know, I think some of my earliest mentors, certainly my middle school drama teacher, Mr. Irwin, what up? Um, he, I think, was one of the first people that really saw some kind of artistic spark in me and really helped to nurture that and encouraged me in it and made learning fun and made coming out of my comfort zone fun, which I usually don't enjoy. I don't know anyone who does like that. If you do, good on you. Um, but so definitely him, and also my older sister. I have one sibling. Her name is Jill. She's 10 years older than me, and she is also an actor, um, and director and teacher and writer. She's a prolific writer, um, and she really saw that kind of artistic instinct in me too as a little one. And she would just really encourage that in me.
You went to Stevens College.
I did. You are
Yes.
correct.
As you finished at Stevens, and you went pretty much right to work, did you? You started working right away.
I did. I was really fortunate. Oh man. Stevens College, if you're watching, I love you and I always will. But it really was such a phenomenal program, and just the amount of obviously training that we received, but experience that they really exposed us to. Um, my That would have been the summer before my senior year. All of the BFA students go to a summer stock theater that the college owns and operates in northern Iowa called Okoboji Summer Theater. And it's 10 weeks of summer stock. It's 9 shows in those 10 weeks, and it's 4 children's shows in the children's theater that's also a part of Okoboji. Um, and the summer that I went, the gentleman who happened to be in charge of the kids theater that year, they call it the Boji Bantam, he was from Kansas City. And he and I kind of got connected. And I remember him talking to me and saying, hey, there's a theater out in Kansas City that wants to do Once on This Island, and they're looking to cast it traditionally, meeting all people of color, as it should be. Uh, and he said, "Do you mind if I give your headshot and resume to the artistic director?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, sure." So, I had my little digitally taken headshot that one of my friends took. It was like, "Here you go, Mr. Director." Um, and I had an audition that December. And then I found out, I think over Christmas break, that I was cast. And so rehearsal started 3 weeks after I graduated from school.
Wow.
Very fortunate.
Yeah. I mean,
Very
and you just
fortunate.
worked and worked and I'm going to say very quickly found your way into some of the most prestigious theater companies in the country and honestly in the world. You're working at Oregon Shakespeare Festival quite young. You're
Yeah.
working at the Guthrie Theater. You're working at Kansas City
Yeah.
Repertory
Kansas City rep.
Theater,
Yep.
Dallas Theater Center. The New Victory off Broadway.
Yeah.
Um, who were some of your professional mentors in that early process when you found yourself all of a sudden, okay, I'm now working at some of the most prestigious companies in the country?
Right?
Yeah.
Golly, there's so many to mention, truly. When I think about that Once on This Island, my first professional production I did, um, our director and some of the other folks in that cast who were like Kansas City kind of royalty really mentored me and took me under their wing. That was Nedra Dixon and Damron Armstrong. Um, Also, people of color that could kind of, help guide me on my journey as a young artist in that realm. And I mean, I love them both to this day and still talk to Damron quite frequently. um, but gosh, there's like 9 million names. Jeff Church, who is the artistic director at the Coterie Theater, was so kind and kept bringing me back and back and back into that theater. And I remember specifically the day he said, "We would love to keep having you back, but it's time for you to go and do bigger things beyond the Coterie." And he cut me loose, and I was like, "What? What do I do?" And he was like, "Don't worry, you got this." So I think of Jeff Church. I think of Julie Shaw and Kip Niven, who were with me when we did Lucky Duck, which is the show that transferred from the Coterie Theater to the New Victory Theater off Broadway in New York City. Um, yeah, there's so many to name, but they were two specifically in that show. Just really wonderful people who could help me when I was having issues with my voice. It was my first time having a lead in Kansas City, and so they really helped me with that too. Um, yeah, there's a lot.
That's
There's a lot of people.
that's beautiful. I love that. You talked about them kind of saying, "Hey, it's time for you to go," even though we want you to stay so much. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite things at PCPA, and it's such an odd thing to say, but one of my favorite days is when one of my students turns me down.
Yeah.
They've maybe done a summer, maybe they stayed for the summer after they finished the conservatory, maybe they came back for
Yeah.
another summer, and then I'm calling them and saying, hey, you want to come back for another one, and they've moved on to
Yeah.
places that maybe pay more than I can pay,
Yeah.
or they're just moving on to a new area of the country, and I'm always
Yep.
like, it's sad for us,
Yeah.
but so great for us at the same time. We're just so thrilled when we're like, okay, they've moved to a new level.
Yeah. They're
And
doing
hopefully,
it.
yeah, and hopefully they'll come back at some point, but there's more for them out there than just us.
Exactly. And I think that's a testament to the work that you're doing there when you are, shaping this next generation of artists that is being sought after by all of these other companies across the country. I think that's incredible. And I'm excited to get to be a part of that.
Well, speaking of shaping, I want to do a quick time travel with you.
Oh, okay.
So, as you've been thinking about teaching and mentoring young
Mm.
actors, if you could go back in time
Hmm.
and stand in the parking lot of Stevens College in August of your freshman year, and
Oh,
you could talk to young freshman Jennie Greenberry as she's walking up to the building for the first time.
oh my
What
gosh.
what would you want to say to her?
I would tell her, and I would try my best not to cry while telling her, um, You got this, and you are enough. You.
That's awesome.
That's what I would say.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
And it's true. 100% true. Nobody does you better than you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so much pressure, especially in this industry, although I think you could apply it to, our culture at large, but there's so much pressure to be the next best, brightest, hottest thing. And it seems like so much of what we define as success depends on um, cutting someone else down, or squeezing someone else out. And it's like, that's not that, it doesn't have to be that way at all. Success is, to me, fully being able to step into your talents and continue to grow in them and share them with the people in your sphere, and just live your life knowing you're doing the best you can with what you have. And when you think of it that way, there's room for everybody at the table. So if someone else is doing something great that you would like to do in future, you can still celebrate that person, and it gives you a goal to shoot for.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So, as we talk about mentoring and your journey into some of the most prestigious companies at
mm,
such an early age, I
yeah.
want to ask, did you ever struggle with like a fraud complex? Like you're
Yes.
just like, oh God, they're going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. Uh,
Yeah.
talk to me. How did you deal with it? Because I have to say, you were so freaking good. Like
Oh,
you were so good. I mean, I just sat there with my
thank
jaw
you.
hanging open. I could throw your name in with all of those names. But I know, being a young actor who had spent most of her early career in musical theater,
Yeah.
how did you manage that?
Oh my gosh. I feel like this is a point where I should bring my mom in and she can just go through her notes of like everything she had to tell me while I was there were so many phone calls here, home to St. Louis, to mom being like, I suck. Why am I doing this? And she's like, okay, you're fine. Like, you're where you're supposed to be. Um, golly. I think the first thing I think of, honestly, is Pericles, because so Bill Rausch, who was the former artistic director at OSF, he would have these, what he called wish list meetings, at the end of every season with every single member of the acting company. And basically, that was 15 minutes. Where you could come in and you would talk to him about how your season was going, if you want to return, what are the shows you would like to be a part of or would not like to be a part of next year. It was a really cool tradition that he established, and I really enjoyed that. So at the end of my first season at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, I had my little wish list, and I came into Bill and he was like, okay, Jenny, so what are you thinking about for next year? Would you like to be with us again? And that was a no brainer. Obviously, yes, I want to come back. And he said, okay, well, talk to me about some of the shows you're interested in. And I had done a lot of thinking. And because, like you said, the majority of my background up to that point was musical theater. And I just had this kind of light bulb moment of going, look, Jenny, you're at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. You're at one of the most preeminent classical theater institutions in the country. So if you leave here never having dipped your toes in classical work, even as much as it scares you, that will have been a tremendous waste. So I told Bill, I don't want to do the musicals next year. And I just kind of saw his face go. I was like, oh man, this is it. Like, I'm getting fired. Um, but you know what? He was really on board with the fact that I wanted to dip my toes into the classical world. And he put me in the long running Shakespeare show. He put me in two Shakespeare's that year, and that was Pericles, and that was Antony and Cleopatra, that Bill directed. And Pericles, as you know, ended up running for 13 months. We took it from OSF to the Folger Theater in DC and then to the Guthrie. And I feel like every day of rehearsal for the first like month to 6 weeks was just me going, today's the day I get fired. They're going to ask me to leave. I have signed my own pink slip. You moron. Why did you ask Bill to put you in this? Why? Um, but I think, honestly, getting to work with Joe and getting to work with Rebecca, who cared about my progress as a young actor and who cared about my burgeoning experience with Shakespeare. That really took a lot of the edge off, took a lot of the pressure off of feeling like, oh, I have to deliver or I'm gonna, get the boot. Because they were invested in my progress, which is a somewhat of a unique experience, especially in commercial theater, where people just kind of expect you, once you're in the room, like, okay, show us what you got. But not so with Rebecca and Joe. Just they really held my hand every step of the way, and so that really helped me to kind of, like you, like just enjoy the process. I'm already here. They're not going to fire me. Don't know how that didn't happen, but I was able to just let go and enjoy the challenge of it. I still cried a lot, but but I finally was able to kind of get it through my head. Like, no, we get strong when we meet resistance. I need this resistance training, and it made me stronger and more confident in my abilities. So I still deal with imposter syndrome from time to time, but now I'm much more comfortable and confident in who I am and what I have to offer.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that that you don't deal with it as much because like I've said so many times, your work just continues to astound me, and I got to see you in Pericles, and I remember going, oh my God, she does this too. Uh, you know, um, yeah, one of the funniest human beings, one of the most glorious voices I've ever heard. And now she's an amazing classical actor. So
Thank
I
you.
can't wait for the audiences to get to spend time with you, Jenny,
So
and our
excited.
students as well.
Yes.
Hey, we just want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors, Suzanne and Ron Levy. Thank you, Suzanne and Ron. We appreciate you so very much for all of your support over the years, and especially for helping us out with this show. All right, Jenny, I would be remiss if I didn't spend at least a little bit of time talking about your amazing prowess as a baker. Uh, and
Yes.
people might think I'm joking, but you're gonna see some pictures of some of the stuff that Jenny has created, and you've been in the running for some of the big fancy bake shows.
I
So
have.
how did baking come into your life? How do you make these? I mean, they're works of art.
Thank
How was the
you.
process of auditioning for these shows? And
Yeah.
how is it that you don't just eat them all the time? How did baking come into your life, and
Man,
what does it do for you?
I love baking. Um, so, okay, baking first appeared in my life as a tiny tot. My mom, one of my first baking memories was learning how to make Bisquick biscuits with
Mm.
my mom,
Hmm.
and they're delicious. I don't care what anybody says, ain't nothing wrong with a box mixed biscuit. Uh,
Biscuit cake. I had Biscuit cake for my birthday with pudding in the middle of it. Mm.
hey,
Yeah.
delicious.
How did you go from Bisquick biscuits to works of art?
Well, I love eating. Fun fact, who doesn't love food? I don't know anyone that doesn't enjoy food. But I very much have a sweet tooth. I love baked goods. And I figured out very early on that the easiest way to get a hold of the baked goods that make me happiest were just to make them myself. If you can't make a midnight run to the grocery store for some sandwich cookies or snack cakes, figure out how to make them. Um, I started baking on my own in third grade. And I remember we would have like library hour, every day or every week in third grade. And I kept checking out the same book. It was the Fanny Farmer Junior Cookbook. And I was constantly making popovers and banana bread and and peanut butter cookies, all kinds of things from this book. And I think the librarian at my school told my mom that I kept checking out the same book, and my mom bought the cookbook for me so I could stop borrowing it from the library every week. And there's just something about the structure to baking. I thrive in structure, so I love, knowing the exact measurements, and there's a precise rhythm to getting all your ingredients prepared. There's a specific order in which you have to add them, and it's very relaxing. Baking is very much my therapy. I mean, I also go to real therapy, but when I'm not right, listen, take care
Oh
of
yeah.
your mind. Um, but when I I'm not in my therapist's office, then I enjoy working through whatever feelings or stress or anxiety that I'm dealing with by just zoning out and putting a cake together. Um, and the artistry part comes in because it's a part of who I am, like you, we enjoy doing creative things. And so it's really fun to challenge myself and be like, what I've never done before, worked with tempered chocolate. Okay, let's do something with tempered chocolate. Oh, you know what I've never done? I've never made an entremet. So let's make an entremet. All right. So that's kind of how that went.
What is the secret to making a cake, a
Hmm.
whole cake,
Yes.
and then not sitting down in front of the television and eating the whole cake? So who do you share? Do you give it away? What do you, how do
Yes,
you, yeah.
I do. This is why it's really handy to be in casts because I bring them to my casts. So I apologize in advance for the immense amount of baked goods that will be parading in and out of our rehearsal rooms. Um, but really, that's something that I think I got from my mom. She is very much a feeder of people. She's so hospitable. That is one of her gifts is hospitality. And she loves feeding people. She loves bringing people together. And I definitely inherited that from her. Food is one of the few things that I think literally everybody can agree on is enjoyable, you know? And I just love that it can bring people together. And my gosh, you bring a plate of cookies or a beautiful cake to a rehearsal room, you watch people light up. I love that.
Mm.
I love that. I love seeing people happy and then getting to eat treats because treats make everything better.
It does. All right, Jenny. Well, I want to wrap up with one final question here.
Yes.
So it's been a pretty unprecedented, incredibly unique, fascinating, challenging year.
What do you mean?
Well, it's been a little different. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I remember thinking to myself, there are a couple actors in the country right now that when I realized they didn't have jobs, I went, "Oh, this is a big deal."
Yeah.
Jennie Greenberry not having a job in the theater, I was like, "Oh, there's something really going on here." If
Yeah.
Jenny's not on stage right now,
Yeah.
um, I want to know, kind of, kind of broad question, but
Mm.
what do you know now that you didn't know a year ago?
Mm. I know that one, I know that I was extremely burned out. Um, and I hadn't realized it until my body was catching up to me and I couldn't figure out why I was feeling so sluggish all the time, even though I was getting sleep. Why, the things that typically would make me happy weren't really getting that spark in me anymore. And when the pandemic hit and I had to let go of all the projects that I had lined up for the year, um, it was really hard, but it was also a blessing in disguise for me because I had this whole entire year, one, to be back home with my family. I have not been able to spend this much time with my parents. I haven't lived in St. Louis. I haven't lived in this house since I was 17 years old. um, so that has been amazing. I've gotten to strengthen my relationships with my extended family that lives in St. Louis, which is really great. Um, and really just kind of dig back into therapy and take care of my body, take care of my mind. When you're go, 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 go all the time, it's really easy to forget to take care of yourself. Um, so I definitely learned about literal self care this past year. I also learned that my worth as a human being has nothing to do with other people's opinion of me. I am still gifted and I am still incredibly good at what I do, whether or not people are seeing this on stage or on TikTok or on Instagram. Um, and that was a huge kind of watershed moment too, of being like, oh, if a Jenny sings in a forest and no one's around to hear her, is she singing? The answer was yes.
Wow, Jenny, that
Mm,
is that's so beautiful and so well said. And
thank you.
you're not even here yet, and we're already learning. We're already learning from you. I mean, that is take it to the bank. That is good stuff. Really good stuff.
Wow.
Um, thank you so much for doing
Thank
this. And
you.
we're just counting the minutes until you get here in August, and we just can't wait to just set you loose on our stage for our audiences, and for the new, just you, just the you that you're bringing to our students, and to the faculty. We are unbelievably thrilled and can't wait for you to get here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. We talked a lot about mentors today, and I just keep thinking of all the people that have so graciously poured into my life. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to pay some of that forward to the amazing artists that we will be teaching at
That's
PCPA
awesome.
this year.
So great. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and we just can't wait to be in the same room with you again. All right, have a good one. See you next month.